Sounds good. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, CCA, for having us back again. So we're here from the Wix Playground Academy. I know some of you might know us from previous iterations of the workshops that we've done, but my name is Lisa. I'm here with the Wix Playground Academy team. I joined pretty recently over the summer, end of July. And before that, I graduated with a degree in illustration and communication design from Washington University in St. Louis. And then since then, I've been at a bunch of different design jobs, from like being the only designer at a teeny tiny startup team to being one of 75 on an international team at a larger company in-house. So kind of run the gamut of different design jobs. And now I thought I would take that experience and bring it back to students to kind of, give you some lay of the land, what it's like out there, and teaching now with Yoti and Delilah. I'll let Yoti do his intro.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Yeah, so my name is Yotam. You can also call me Yoti. Yotam Kellner, originally from Israel. I moved here to New York. I'm based now in Brooklyn 4 years ago. And my history, I graduated for Bachelor of Graphic Design and Visual Communication from the Bezalel Academy in Jerusalem back in 2011, back in the days, and then worked a little bit in the industry. In Tel Aviv, I had my own studio. I did some freelance work. I had a studio for motion design called Sol Royale with some partners, and then I joined Wix 2015, so in the past 6 years, started as a template designer. It's funny, Lisa, when you talk about numbers, I think when I joined Wix, we were 60 designers. Back then, now we are 240. So Wix has a lot of designers. The base is still in Israel, in Tel Aviv, but we have a few studios also in Kiev, in Ukraine, in Lithuania, in Europe. So it's really fun to be a part of a big group of designers. You learn a lot. But also, it's cool to be in a small studio with like 4 designers that you can express yourself. So there's a pluses and minuses for everything. So yeah, in Wix now I'm leading the playground together with Lisa and Delilah. I'm doing the mentoring part of the program, and I'm also hands-on designing on Wix and also teaching. So I'm going to show you the demo today with Editor X. And yeah, if you have any questions, please unmute and let us know, and also use the chat here. And together with us is Delilah.
Hi everyone. Please excuse my video off. I'm a bit under the weather, so I don't want to expose me sitting in my pajama. But my name is Delilah. I've been with the playground for a little over a year now. I help to coordinate the programs that we run in the summers and the winters now for Europe. And we'll tell you more about the program. And if you have any questions during that, like Yoti said, please write in the chat and be as interactive as you'd like. We have a small group today, so should feel comfortable to speak up.
Great. Thanks, Delilah. Hope you feel better. And yeah, so if you didn't hear about the playground and what we do actually at Wix. So Wix is the larger company. You build websites on Wix. So the Wix Playground is a smaller team. And what we do is we run the summer program for US students about web design. So it is going to be June 6th through July 8th this year. It's 5 weeks. And we'll show you a little sneak peek about what we do on the next slide. So this is some footage. We also run the program in Europe and in Israel. So this was from the Europe program last year. We are going to be online again for this coming summer, just because we're not quite sure what's going to go on with COVID and everything. But we like to make sure things are still super hands-on and really fun. We send care packages to every student who gets into the program so that we can do these super cool, really tactile workshops. This one was with a studio in Paris where we used LEDs inside of our craft and added a whole new version of interactivity to what we make. This is Alex Beck from the graphic design blog It's Nice That, telling us about what it was like to start the blog and what his career in the industry has been like. That's Alex from Tokyo, who is a DJ from Berlin, and he came to DJ a party for us. And this is Ollie from Superimpose. He created his own ad agency, Superimpose, and told us what that was like, what it's like to work in the ad space. It's completely different than other types of graphic design jobs. We have a lot of fun. We like to party with each other and, connect to other students around the country who get into the program. This is the virtual goat petting party. Not sure if we're going to do that exact party again, but I hope so because it seems really cool. And we do a lot of fun things, but we also make sure we're learning during the program, right? So these are all the topics we cover, and there's also more, but this is just a quick summary. It's everything from to back on creating your own web portfolio. So it's not just, packaging your work and making sure it looks good on a site. It's writing the content that goes on your About Me page, or writing the descriptions about the projects in your portfolio, making sure you're creating a cohesive story. We do a little bit about coding and animation from a design point of view. So even if you aren't, I know there's usually a lot of animation majors from CCA. So even if you aren't from that major and you don't really know how to do it, we kind of cover it from like a more basic perspective. And it is a project-based learning course, which means you are only completing one project through these whole 5 weeks, and that is your portfolio. So I don't know what other time you're going to have to just only focus on your portfolio. I know once you get out of college, you're kind of working your first job and you're like, I don't have any time to, work on my portfolio on top of working my full-time job, or even in school right now, you're focused so much on your finals or your midterms or your projects. So having 5 weeks solely dedicated to just your portfolio gets you off to a really great start. And it's not even just you focusing on it, it's all the other students who are in the cohort with you, will help you and peer review each other's portfolios. You also have me and Yotama and Delilah at the playground, going over your portfolios with you, as well as other folks from Wix, right? So people who are from the UX team or people who are coders will help you out, as well as folks from outside of the industry or outside of Wix in the design industry. So these are some examples of portfolios from the US cohort. You can see that the portfolios are really unique looking, right? You can already kind of tell the different personalities or what these designers like to do. It's not your typical template where it's just a white background and there's like a grid of images. To come up with something super custom. And Delilah's just dropped the link in the chat here. You can learn more. You can bookmark this to apply to the Academy later. I know it's only, right before Thanksgiving. The summer's a long way away. So if you're not ready to apply yet, feel free to just bookmark that. But if you wanted to apply right now, that's totally fine too. There's early admissions applications on a link all the way at the bottom of the page that we linked. And you can feel free to apply now. We probably won't be looking at them just right yet because the European Academy is starting in January. So we're kind of more focused on getting that cohort together. But after that Academy is over, we will start looking at the US applications. Great. So does anyone have any questions about the Academy before we get into the meat of things here? If not, we also have Q&A at the end. All right, so let's do this. So we're here to talk to you about Editor X today. And what is it? It is a platform for building websites that was specifically created with designers in mind. So it gives us the ability to create sites without any code. You have the ability to use code if you want to, but you can create super simple to super complex site with no code whatsoever if you don't want to. It has a powerful CMS, which is a content management system, and it gives us the ability to really control every detail, every component, and every interaction on our sites. So one of EditorX's key features is giving us the power to choose how our sites behave responsibly, which we're going to go into a little bit later. So to date, Wix has more than 200 million users. So that's a ton of websites, right? Our teams all over Wix are looking at thousands of these custom built websites a day, and not even just the Wix websites. We're also looking at other platforms too, and how websites are built across all different kinds of tools. So even at the Academy here, we look at thousands of portfolios a year just during the application process, right? So there's lots and lots of websites we're seeing all the time. And it's clear out there that there are a lot of sites and there are a lot of web designers out there who are kind of like sinning. And so there's one big, like, quote unquote, crime that happens across websites that we see out there. And we were wondering if you could take a guess at like what this problem is that we're seeing across the board. Feel free to write in the chat, or if you feeling brave and want to chit chat with us, you can unmute.
Not choosing the right font.
Right font is very subjective, I think, but depends if you can read the font or not. But well, to give you a hint, the title of today's presentation is Responsive Design with Editor X. And so this big crime that we're seeing is that a lot of people don't check to make sure that their site is responsive across the board. Even the big designers do it, right? It's just everyone, sometimes you forget to check all the different screen sizes. Thanks, Susie. So before we make really harsh judgments on these quote unquote sinners, we should first align on what the term responsive means. I think we can click to the next slide if possible. So before, this is a joke about the editor. So these are, you can align things to the top, the middle, or the bottom, right? So we're aligning on our definition. But before looking into any question or problem, we like to take a trip back in time and kind of look at the history to understand how today's trends and methodologies even came into being before solving this problem, right? So this is fun. So surprisingly, the first website is from 1991, which is 30 years ago. And it was actually already responsive. So you can see this by looking at how the length of text breaks responsively as the screen resizes, right? The content automatically gets pushed downwards. But then as websites started to become more complex, it became more difficult to make them responsive. So this was Yahoo. Yahoo was a really big player back in the day, if you can believe it. This is the fixed size of their first website from 1994. And responsive design wasn't even a consideration at the time. The existing technology didn't really offer it. There were no smartphones, right? Back in 1994, you weren't really surfing the web on your phone. So you were kind of just set in this like desktop square, like those old gateway computers. So then almost a decade later is when the first iPhone was released. Yes, the Space Jam website is a true blast. Definitely check that out if you have the time. But the first iPhone was released in 2007, and Yahoo at the time still just displayed their desktop version. So look how teeny tiny it shows up on the screen, right? They're not even like considering how big this phone is. There's all that white blank space on the bottom. You'd have to like zoom in to click on any links. It's horrible. So it took almost a whole nother year for the internet to realize the potential and importance of making the site match the medium on which it's displayed. So in 2008, 1 year later, Yahoo started the adaptive movement. And so that means they created a completely separate version of the site specifically for mobile. And adaptive design refers to creating separate fixed size sites. So when a visitor opens an adaptive site on their device, the closest size, it estimates the closest size and displays that fixed size. So if you joined us for the session that we did on the Classic Editor last time, Wix Classic actually uses adaptive technology. But this is a completely viable way still to design for the web. There's just like some hiccups with this approach. And so for example, anytime you want to remove content or update the technology on your site, so on, you have to do it multiple times for each site. So if you made one edit on this site here that we're seeing on the screen, you would have to change it 3 times for each of these 3 designs. So another major issue with that is in adaptive design, we're relying on 2 or 3 fixed versions of our sites, right, to account for all of the screen size out there. And the current estimation is that there are over 8 billion unique devices connected to the web, which is crazy. So as you can imagine, our designs might be displayed incorrectly or not as intended many, many times. And if we add in that issue we discussed before, where one edit, right, you would have to do it the 3 separate times. If you were trying to make that one edit for all 8 billion versions of screen sizes, and each edit took about 1 minute, it would take 15,000 years to correct. So that's kind of why we wanted to create a different approach to replace adaptive design. And that new approach is called responsive web design. So we've pulled a really straightforward definition of what responsive design is. Would someone be willing to unmute and read the definition for us?
Any volunteers?
Thank you.
Responsive web design is an approach to web design which makes web pages render well on a variety of devices, Windows or screen size.
Thank you, Keith. So yeah, we can see from the beginning of website history, so if you remember that page from 1991, responsive design was technically already in existence. It's just that we had to remember to do that again. So while adaptive design, as we talked about, are those concrete separate variations of the same design, responsive design works across those spectrums of sizes. So to change your thinking a little bit to be more responsive, think about a website as one canvas where you throw all your necessary content into. And then as you resize your screen or your viewport, you play with what content to hide or show or what content to relay out. It's kind of like Marie Kondoing. If you're moving from a really big house on desktop, right, to moving into a teeny tiny New York or San Francisco apartment, you're trying to think like, does this really bring me joy, this menu? Do I need it to have all of the links in it, or am I going to move downsize to a hamburger menu? Things like that. So it's a bit like different instrumental tracks on a song, or even like animation, where you're, instead of creating on a timeline, you're creating on a width, right? And you're showing or hiding a drum beat, layering your vocal. So your different breakpoints are going to be kind of like your keyframes. And then all the things in between is responsive. Those are your tweening, right? So why is all this so important, right? We've decided to list some of the top versions or reasons here. And one of them is conversion. So if you're designing a store page and your buy now button is hard to find, or it's under the fold just because it's not responsive, it's going to be hard to find, and then you'll lose your sales, right? And then I wasn't sure if you knew this. I didn't know this before making this presentation. Sites like Google, so search engine sites, can actually prioritize results based on how well they perform on mobile. So if your site isn't mobile responsive, Google will know that somehow, and they won't, put your search result toward the top. And the reason Google does this is that actually half of all web traffic worldwide is accounted for by mobile. So half of all web traffic comes from mobile visits. And as designers and illustrators, animators, what have you, you want your work to look amazing, even if someone's checking it really quickly on their phone. And then lastly, stickiness is really important. And stickiness means how long a user stays on your site. So if you think about it, if a user runs into issues on your site just because they're looking at your site on their phone, what are they going to do? I mean, if they're not a really loyal fan of yours, right? If they are a really loyal fan, maybe they'll go and visit on desktop. But if they have no idea who you are, they're just browsing, they're probably not going to do anything, right? They'll just close out of your site and then move on with their life. It's really important to make sure your stuff shows up exactly where the viewer's looking at it. So we have some tools that will help us do responsive design, and we'll go into our little arsenal here. First, we have breakpoints. And so a breakpoint is where a viewport changes and the site overrides in layout or styling. So I was kind of talking about how those are kind of your keyframes. Breakpoints are the points where designers want to art direct and interrupt the site. And so thinking about what a breakpoint is, can you guess the 3 most popular breakpoints?
Header and the middle content and the bottom.
Okay, so those are kind of like your most main pieces of content that you want to put on your site, right? Your header and your content and your footer in the bottom. We're talking about what screen sizes are the 3 most popular. What widths do you think?
Desktop.
Yep, that's definitely one.
Phone and what was it? Like iPad?
Yep, tablet.
Tablet.
Yeah, it's easy just to think about what are all the products that Apple makes, right? What are the products you see in the store when you walk in? Someone had actually mentioned Apple Watch. So that'll be really interesting. I don't own an Apple Watch, but I'm not really sure how much web surfing you can do on there, but who knows? Maybe even metaverse in the future, we'll see. So to think a little bit more about breakpoints, we'll look at this example here. There's actually a lot going on, but if we examine it more closely, we can figure out how many breakpoints there are by taking a closer look. So when the content changes, right? So at the larger side, there's 2 columns, right? There's content that's listed side by side to each other. That's the larger point. And then once it shrinks down into that mobile site, that instance where the things start dropping down and it becomes 1 column, that's where the breakpoint occurs. And on this site, we're seeing here, it's between tablet and mobile. And on the next slide, so another responsive tool that we have is called Fluidity. And Fluidity are the rules you apply to each element or each piece of content, like a text string or an image, within the ranges between your breakpoints. So this is kind of, we were talking about tweening between keyframes. This is when you're starting to think about how things tween between the 2 breakpoints. So it can be applied to 2 main features of an element, and those are its position or its size. So for example, a fluid rule could be, this image should grow according to the screen size until it reaches 800 pixels wide. So if we look at this example and try to break it down, we'll see that there's a lot of different versions of Fluidity here. So there are things that are fluid in terms of size only and not position. So I think Yoti sometimes annotates here. Super helpful, right? So that one is changing in size, but not position, right? It's just shrinking. It's not moving across the page. We have an example also of something that is moving in position, but not changing in size. And that's that PR circle with the little squiggle lines over it, right? It's not shrinking or growing in size. It's just moving based on how big or small the screen is. And then on the bottom left is an example of something that's completely fixed. So that's not changing in size or position based on how the screen size changes. That's like that 1994 Yahoo site where things are still stuck. Great. So then the last thing we'll cover is responsive layouts. This is the last major tool in our responsive toolbox. And layouts are a way to structure all the things on your site, or could just be one section of a site, one fold. And this is using one of two types of responsive technology, and they're called the CSS grid and the Flexbox. So each of these has its pros and cons, and the best use of them depends on the design or the content you're working with. The first one, it's a tool in the Editor X called the Layouter, and this is the one that uses that Flexbox technology I was talking about. Compared to the second tool, which is the CSS grid, this Layouter and this Flexbox technology is a lot easier to use. It's best to use for things like lists because it has more constraints, and you could say it's one-dimensional. And that's because it only works on one kind of logic, and that rule is once there's no more space, it wraps all the content inside of a Z-path. So you're not getting rid of certain items here, you're just dropping them all into the next row. That's why it's a little bit easier to use, it's more automatic. But with this, you're gonna give up your full positioning control in exchange for the ease of automatically wrapping your content. So on the other hand, the CSS grid gives you that full control. So to use a grid in Editor X, you'll take any container on your page, and then you'll apply a grid to help divide the larger area of the canvas into smaller areas, which UOT is going to show us a little bit later. You can create as many grid lines as you need at whatever iterations you like, and then you place your content within them. Then you control how that content responds to the grid that you created. So another cool way to use the grid is controlling how each row and column resizes. So this works really well when you're creating overlapping and super complex layouts. And being able to change the grid at every breakpoint makes Editor X a super powerful responsive design tool. So again, as a reminder, for this level of the granular control, you're exchanging the automatic ease of the layouter. So you'll have to put more work when you're using the CSS grid into making sure your grid responds exactly the way you want across every single breakpoint. So it's a little hard to know where to start. I know we're throwing a lot of new terminology at you, but the best way to do that is to look at examples, and Yotam will walk us through some of our favorites.
Yeah, so some of the graduates of our program build amazing sites on Editor X, and I want to show you a few. So let's start with the first one. This is Andrada. As you can see, she's a dreamer and a doer. Right, you see the big titles, and I want to ask you, maybe you can answer me, unmute yourself, or answer in the chat. What kind of responsive tools that we just learned on about with Lisa does she use for the site? What do you see here that's changing? Maybe let's try to analyze it together. Any ideas? You see the big titles changing, right?
Are they using the Flexbox, or what is it called? The
Flexbox? No, actually not. Actually, there are two grid parts here. The two main cells are changing, but there is fluidity, right? And the text. So the text is resizing, is becoming small and big. And there is also one thing that happened here, that those white shapes disappears and another element appears. So there's definitely breakpoints here, right? Because I can design the breakpoints according to what I want. And there's definitely fluidity here because the text grows and shrinks. Okay, nice. We'll see an example with Flexbox for sure. What's happening here? So we can see this is actually a sneak peek into the editor, which I'll show you soon in a live demo. And you see the breakpoints here on top. Thank you, Lisa, for annotating. What is changing? Do you see a big element that disappears? So Shuyun says grid layout. Yes, 100%. So this is a responsive grid layout because you see the letter H is shrinking. I would put that in a grid cell. So the vertical lines are staying the same and the horizontal line is changing between different breakpoints with a fraction. Okay, so a fraction of my screen is just automatically gonna be smaller. I'll show you an example of that. So definitely. And then there's also hide and show, right? Because on mobile, we don't see this dropping animation letters, right? So on some breakpoint, I change it to not be seen. I'll show you how to do it. It's really easy. So what do we see here? You guessed it on the first one. So that's definitely a Flexbox. See the grid cells? And I want to point out the title. You're in the right place. See how it breaks? Sometimes 3 lines, sometimes 2 lines. Sometimes it takes big part of the screen, or let's say half side of the screen on desktop, right? It's like almost 50%. And on mobile, which you see right now, it takes 80% of the screen. I have one column and two columns, and I have a flex game between the columns and rows, which happens automatically if you use the layouter. Okay, it's harder to do on a grid though. So this is a really good example. Great, so all of these are graduates of our academy. This one is from Israel, the past two was from Europe, and we're looking to see what students will come up with. Before we dive into the editor, it's really important, we also do it on every workshop, to have a reminder on the design process, design thinking. Okay, so we're starting with inspiration, creating a mood board. This is a really great way to start. Creating your sitemap, sketch your site, organize your file and everything. The really big difference between Classic Editor and Editor X is that you'll have to finalize your design for all breakpoints. Even if you do wireframing, plan your mobile, plan your tablet, plan your desktop, because you don't have to take care of all those breakpoints. You also need to take care of all the in-betweens and transitions, and it's becoming more and more complex. So as long as you have a plan, it's easier to execute this on the editor. Okay, so on the demo, what we're going to do is we're going to start from blank, just to introduce to you the Editor X interface, and then we want to talk about fluidity. I want to show you an example of type, and we're going to talk about breakpoints. I'm going to hide and show elements on the board, on the canvas, and also we're going to talk about grids, and if we'll have time, a bonus for hover interactions, so we can do something exciting with hovering over the element. Okay, so ready to start? You can go to editorx.com, or even start with a template. We're going to build this today. So this is like Mollard digital expert, digital agency screen. I'm just going to build the two first folds, the big animation and title. And I just want to show you that on Editor X you have all those different breakpoints, and you see that the text is getting smaller and bigger. I'll teach you how to do that. And this is where you can choose the templates, and we're going to choose blank canvas. So if you go to Editor X website templates, this URL, you can click edit, and I pre-open it ahead of time. So you already have the editor ready, and this is the interface of what we see. So one of you was talking about building blocks. So this is actually the building blocks, the header, the body, and the footer. And here we have masters in the footer and the header that continue with me to all of the pages. This is the pages menu, and I can duplicate, and this is very similar to Classic Editor. What else do we see here? The big sections are right now empty because I can go to the plus icon and add elements to there. So I can drag the title and attach it, for example, to the header. Okay, you have tons of tools here. I would really recommend to you to use compositions, to add a composition to learn what you'll have there. Oh, and the site is saved. So that's great. Layout tools, remember Lisa was talking about layouters. This is where you find it. So you can have presets here, and you can learn more about it. And then tons of like decorative elements. You already know Wix, so it's pretty much the same, just into Editor X. So play with this and have a look. And then we also have the layers panel, which is really important for us. So for example, let's take a look at this header building block. The header is also a section. It's a master, so it's in green, and it's a parent. Okay, it's a parent box or container for these elements. My menu here, it's hidden, but you see the home, the element text, the text box that I added, and hamburger menu that's hidden. I want to show you how easily I can display and don't display these elements, and I can change between my elements. So you can do that, display and not display on all breakpoints, and it will change. So this will happen automatically on all breakpoints. Okay, so this is the layer panel. It's really important. Masters, you can control the masters from here. And then styling, also really important. You can change fonts and colors from here. And then you can add apps to your site. You can add a store, a blog, whatnot. And you can also add a database. Okay, if you're working with codes and if you're building something a little bit more sophisticated. We're not going to tackle database today. Also an important place. So let me just first add the first title of our site, the Digital Marketing Agency, just to show you what's happening between the different breakpoints. You'll see that between breakpoints, the element breaks. Okay, and I want to teach you how to handle this. So you can control it here. You can even put pixels manually and see your preview, and also use the handles. We'll show you a little bit more what I can do with the handles. Then I think one of the most, besides the publish, which your site's going to go live, one of the most important panels is the inspector. Okay, so inspector, I can determine if my elements are fluid or fixed. Let's say I'm putting this on fixed, and I'm going to do 290 pixels, and I'm going to make the font smaller, way smaller. I'm going to use a different font, and I can center this on the parent, so on the header. And now, because I make the font smaller and also fixed, now it's not going to break, but on mobile, I don't have space. So another tool I want to use is the 3 dots here and don't display. It will take out the element, but it's actually still there. Okay, so the digital marketing agency is here, it's hidden, so you don't see it, but it's actually there on all different breakpoints. Cool? So the way it works on Editor X, when you add a new element, always start with the desktop. Always start with your biggest breakpoint, because the way it works is cascading down and not cascading up. If I'll start adding my elements on mobile, on the smallest breakpoint, it will not show up on the biggest breakpoint. So hopefully this is clear. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, let's change the color of the site. So I can go to each element and change it here from the brush icon and add a color, but I want to go to the page and actually color the whole page. Okay, so I can choose a gray color, and I can even add my own colors. Great. Now after my site is colored, I want to start adding the text. So remember the big title. I can copy this just to save time. And I'm going to go back to text items. I'm going to choose a big title. Let's do heading 1 and pasting it. So here I would probably have to open the text box, but that's not the right font, right? So I want to change it first to my font, and I'm going to change to 85 pixels. And now, because I'm using a responsive element, I'm not using fixed, I'm using fluid, so I'm going to use percentage. And I want this to always be 85% of its parent, the section above it. Okay, so now let's see what happens on different breakpoints. It's still not minimizing the font. It's even creating a scrolling to the side on mobile, which is a big no-no. So because I'm using such a big font, I have a secret tool here and this A icon called scale text, and I'm going to start adding my numbers here. So I want to do 85, and I want to make this center on the page, and I want to dock it. Okay, so I also have another fluid position tool that I can set with pixels, 145 pixels from the top. Now it's docked to the top of the screen, and now because I did it on desktop, it will happen on all different breakpoints, but you see that the font is still small. So because we can design every different breakpoint, I can set the numbers differently. So let's do 56 here, and let's do here 65 and leave it 33.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What if we don't dock it? What will happen?
So it's fine, you cannot dock it, but because now what I'm going to show you in this phase, when I minimize the page, it will be always docked to the top, so I can always keep this space. If you're not going to dock it, you're just going to have random spaces. Okay, so
Gotcha.
docking is connected to how relative is my element, or the text item here, compared to the parent, compared to the section below it. Okay, and docking is how to set the position. Okay, I can also not docking, but when I have more elements, and I'll show you soon how to add some more elements, and you see that you'll need to use docking and even other elements. Okay, so any questions so far?
Thank you.
Perfect. Now, because it's one element, I can add some more. I can change the color, I can add some more styling, and it will be automatically on all different breakpoints. Great. Let's talk about grids now. So I can go to my section and apply a grid. I'm going to apply 2 rows, but I can custom my own grid here, and it will take the pixels of my section and divide it into half, into 2, but I can adjust it. Right now it's pixels, right? So we know it's fixed. I want it to be responsive, so I can change the units here, and I'm actually going to change it to viewport width. So it's just the width of my device. I'm going to use 45%, And here I'm going to use the same system with 25%. Now see what happened. The text element, the text box, was connected to my third row. So it was showing below. And now the docking was changing. So I'm going to go to grid area, which is a fantastic tool, and change it instead of 3, which is the last line of the row, change it to 2. So it's going to go back up, and I'm going to balance the docking to where I want it to be. So with docking, you have to be careful because when you manually change it, it will automatically dock. You see the docking place? It will automatically find where to be attached to. And you want to avoid these like unclear numbers. So I want to first put everything on 0 and then dock it to the place I want. So I want to balance it again and put the pixels that I want here. If I do it on desktop, you're safe because that's what's going to happen on all different breakpoints. Okay? It's a bit tricky, but you know, if you'll try it, you'll see it's not that complicated. Now I'm adding the video. So I'm going to transparent video and I'm dropping here this video. I can change it. I can upload my own videos and I can even color it. So I'm going to choose this abstract video here and I'm going to recolor it with duotone. So I'm going to choose this orange color of the branding of the studio and I'm going to change the colors here from custom colors and I'm going to add it one more time here. So now it's flat and I'm going back to the layout and I can even rotate it with adjust. So I'm going to open the adjustment and I can start, you know, drag and drop it and place it on the desired position, or I can even use percentage. So if I want to do 75% of my screen, I can do it, and with the layers panel I can drop it to the back. So that's how it works. Awesome. So the next part, I will have to do this hello and meet the team. So I'm going to create those 2 text elements in the button here below. Just make sure that it's on the second part of the grid. So let's drop a title here and a paragraph and a button, and I'll start to design it the way I want. Okay, so these are separate elements. So we had a hello here, right? We had some spacing in between the characters, and it was probably smaller. So let's use 20. Let's center it to the page, and it was like a different font. Great, maybe let's make it a little bit bigger. And now I can center it on the page, and this I can center as well, and make the text align to the center, and I can design the button the way I want and align it as well. Okay, so I created those 3 elements. All looks nice and safe. What's going to happen now when I'm moving to different breakpoints? Now every element, we talked about docking, every element is docked to a different place on the screen, right? On the parent. So what's going to happen on different breakpoints? Oh no, it's a mess. I want to teach you how to control this mess really, really easily. So when you're still on desktop, please select all the elements with Shift and stack them together. Stacking is an amazing tool that will let you put all the elements together, and now we can dock all these elements to one position, so it's going to be safer to use, but still I need to make the adjustments. Okay, it's not that easy. So here I'm using 40% of the screen. Okay, I have a big screen, I have a wide screen, that's not a problem. What's happening on the smaller screen? Maybe 40% is a bit smaller, so I want to do maybe 60%. Awesome, that works. And mobile, maybe I want to do 80%. Cool. And you can change those spaces just by clicking on the element and dragging it to the place that you want. Okay? And you can use all of this stacking as one unit and dock it to the way you want on every different breakpoint if you want to use some more space. Okay, so now it's responsive and all those elements are now relate to each other and relative to each other. Cool. Any questions about docking or stacking?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, when you do the docking, it docks to the I guess element right above it, correct?
Exactly. Below it, yes,
Okay.
the parent.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
So
Or below. Okay.
yeah.
And
So here
also
I have
when
a
you're
section and I have a grid. So my parent will be the section, but the grid cell is where I'm going to dock it because I can dock it here. I can dock it to the cell and not to the whole. So yeah, so the element below it. Yeah, definitely. What was the other
okay.
question?
So when you're moving in between breakpoints,
Mhm.
the when you can change certain elements in like the tablet size and the smartphone
Yeah,
size, but
definitely.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase my question.
Okay.
It's super
Um,
complicated, no worries.
um, so when you change it on the phone, for example, it doesn't change on any other
Yes,
breakpoint. But when
exactly.
you change it on, is it like, so, but when you change it on the desktop, that applies to every,
Yes. I want to show you an
okay.
example. I want to show you an example so you understand. Now I'm on the mobile, right? And I want to add here a button. So I'm going to the button and I'm dropping here a say hello button. And remember, I'm on the mobile. It's not going to show up here.
Okay.
Okay? What I will have
Yes.
to do, second thing I have to do is show on all breakpoints. Use on all breakpoints. That
Okay.
now it will show.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
But
I understand.
if I'll delete it now from the desktop, it will be gone from forever. And if I'm going to add the same button on the desktop, it's going to cascade down automatically.
Okay. Okay.
Okay? So I think
Yes.
that
Thank
will
you.
clarify for you. Now, if I'm going to erase it, it's going to ask me you want to delete the element, and it's going to delete it, and I can do don't display. So there's a big difference between delete and don't display, because don't display is only not displaying on the breakpoint. Okay?
Okay.
So very good
Okay.
question to understanding.
Yeah,
Okay, we
thank
have
you.
time for one more. I'll do quickly the the interactive part. So let me just build it here. I want to build a box. So I want to build this logo, remember, the Mollard. So let me copy the text from here and paste it there. And I'm going to use a box, okay? So I'm going to go to quick add. I'm going to use a container box and going to make it not responsive. I'm going to make it fixed, 130 by 130 pixels. And I'm going to drop it in the header. Oops, that's the wrong item. So just make sure that you're selecting the right item before you drag them. And now I can start designing it. So changing the color and putting some round corners into it to make it a circle. And now I want to drop a text into it. So I'm going to choose a small title, add a text here. I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to drop this text inside the box. And we're using the box because the box is the only element that we can do automatically hover interactions to it. Okay? If it's a different element, I would have to use coding for that. So the secret is here under the interaction button. So now I can start to create my interactions. And let's say I want to do change of color and I want to do change of character spacing. So I'm putting it here and I even want to rotate it. So when I'll do all of those settings, sorry, I'm going to actually do 360. When I'm going to do all of these settings, the editor will automatically calculate the animation in between. So that is really cool hover interactions. So I know it was super speedy, but let me know that you get it. And this works with every element that is a box. So if you go to layout tools and you go to empty boxes, every empty box that you add to the site will have this hover interaction. And you can even start with initial part. You know, you want to do, this one is empty pixels. So now you won't see anything, but when you're hovering over it, it will be colored in blue. Okay, so very, very simple interaction. Let me know if you have any questions about it. And then do we have time to show the grid really quickly, or do you want to move to some questions and answering? I have 10 more minutes. I can really show you quickly how can I adjust the grid. For example, if I don't want to use 2 rows, I can adjust the grid into 2 columns. And that's it. And you remember the age from Hermes. So if you want to add another fraction, that's not a problem. And you can go here and click on the plus icon and you'll have another fraction of your screen. then you can fill it up with more elements. Okay? And you can move those elements in between the cells with the grid area. So let's say I want to push it to the second column. I'm going to go here and make it start in the second column or the first column. Okay, so you really use this grid area. It's fantastic. It's really easy tool to use when you're using grids. And if you don't want to use this structure on mobile and tablet, what you can do is you can go to the breakpoint of the tablet and change it back to rows, and this will happen automatically also on mobile. So really fantastic tool. It's a little bit more hard to grasp the grid. So if you want to do a flexbox, I would recommend you to use the layouter and think about it almost like as a gallery. Okay, the layouter, if you add a layouter, you can start adding here images and text and everything, and it will be responsive automatically. You can just set it up with sizes and so on. Okay, so I hope this was useful for you, and we're going to give you a list of tons of other resources. And please let me know if you have any more questions. And we're also going to provide you with a coupon code for your free website. So some more resources will be these links. So everything from design classes to video tutorials to the Academy X, which is an amazing platform which you can go and choose a class. Let's say you want to learn more about layouters or grids. You go to these topics and you have a hands-on exercise with a button to go to the editor. So I really recommend you to do that and try, get your hands dirty. It's fine. You have absolutely no limitation of how many websites you can do with Editor X, like on Wix. And when you want to make it pro, when you want to go with a plan, then you can connect it to a domain and get off the, with the ads. This is where our coupon code get into action. You can get a free website for 1 year. We also have webinars. There's one with Chris Doe, right? In the next couple of weeks, I think next week, for free. And that's online, so you can register and go. You can also watch the history of webinars recorded. Everything is out there. This is not secret science. We want to teach you how to use it. It is not easy like the classic editor, but after you get the point, it's definitely worth it, and you can create amazing websites. You can even charge those, for clients about those websites for a lot of money. So think about that as an opportunity. And then we also have the Editor X community of other users that are asking questions in the forum and so on. Great, so you can reach out to Josh here asking for coupons. So probably Josh, if you want to drop your email in the chat, you get a 100% free for 1 year for any of the combo or unlimited or essential for Editor X for 1 year, and you don't have to rush and use it. The coupon will expire in 1 year, so end of December 2022. So you have time to sketch and build your website and publish it and send it to friends, send it to us so we can show off in your skills as well. You will select the essential and select for 1 year so the coupon will work, and then just drop your coupon here. And before you rush to the big blue button that will take all your money, just make sure that this is 0 so you can enjoy 1 year for free and read all the small letters, because after 1 year it's going to be hard to renew, like Netflix, like any other subscription. But you can change from yearly subscription to monthly, and if you want to cancel, the site will not be erased. You're just going to have your ads and your domain will be disappearing, but your content will be there. You can still use the website for free after a year. So that's a gift from us to you. And we want to know if you have any questions about anything, about responsive design, about the editor, about portfolios. So the mic is open for you to ask questions.
Thank you so much for sharing this information. And I have one question about the layers.
Yes.
Can we go back to the site?
Of course.
Yeah, because I try to make some section above the other, but sometimes when I change it, it doesn't work. Is there any way to solve that problem?
So header will always be on top and footer will be below, but you can get rid of the header and you can start adding like sections that are not masters. So I can erase any layer. If you go to the plus icon, if I go back to the section, and if I go to the plus icon, you can add a blank section, and you can actually go to the 3 dots and move this up. And this will be above. Okay, so you can use this tool. You can make this a shorter section, and you can start duplicate. Okay, so now let's say I have this white section and I want to change between the order. I can either go here and do move down, or either go here and do move up. Depends what the order you want to do. So you don't have to use masters. Now with masters, you will see on all pages, but what you can do is actually every section you can create as master. So set as master, and then this section, and this section now will be on your masters. And you can even decide which pages to show. Show on, and then you can show this on all pages. Now I have only one page, right? So if I'll do another page, an empty page, I can decide, now it's a white page, so it's hard to see. I can decide that I'm going back to the masters, and I'm showing this section, show on my empty page. And now if I go back to the empty page, I'll have this section here. One second. I'm supposed to, or if you just click show on page, it's even easier. And you can decide on which pages you show it. Let's say I don't want to show it on the home page. I can click here and it will disappear from the home page. Okay. So this is how you work with masters. Masters across pages. Sections are for each page, and header and footer will always be on top, and footer will always be below. But you can erase any element that you want, just backspace. And it's a great question, you know. I would encourage you to just try, erase things, add things. You know, you can create like yourself some sort of like a playground page. It's a page that you just, you know, put some elements and play with it, and you never publish it, for example, or you publish it just for yourself. And you know, Google will not find it, and nobody will find it because the links will be kept for yourself. But you can experiment everything, and you're absolutely not limited in what you can do. And all the features are there for free. You don't even have to be premium. Only when you want to charge money from clients, this is where you have to go premium. Yeah, but great questions. Any more questions? Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, Yotam.
Welcome. Thanks for asking. Great. So thank you. I think we're at time, and we have to run to another meeting at 3 o'clock. So these are our emails. If you come up with some more questions, or you want to share with us your links that you created, even if it's just a sketch and you want to get some feedback, shoot us an email and we see what you build, what you come up with. Hopefully it was useful for you to start your website on EditorX. Again, it's free, and you even get a gift from us. So if you have time, definitely try it. And thanks for having us, Josh, and we'll be happy to come back anytime.
Great.